Future of mountain mine in the context of the transportation system within Missoula. How is mountain mine going to help accommodate the almost doubling of population, let's say not doubling, but the substantial increase in population that is projected in the next 30 years in the Missoula area? And last, to take a look in the downtown area as to what the feasibility is of a streetcar network. This is, we are just starting this process. This is, we've started conducting this week we're doing ridership counts on all mountain line buses. And we're also handing out onboard surveys to every passenger that uses a mountain line bus today and tomorrow. So we get an understanding of what the existing passenger base has to say. We're also looking at doing an online survey. And if you go to www.mountainline.com, which is the Mountain Line website, there's a link when it says, asking about this process that will take you to an online survey. And we traditionally had a large amount of success of getting both riders and non-riders to help fill this out, so we get an understanding of not just who our current market is, but who are those people who would ride and what improvements will it take in order to get them to ride the services. We're also holding 3 public meetings. You're at one of these right now. And this is really an opportunity for you to tell us of what some of the needs are in the community. It's not really for us to stand here and say, to talk for 2 hours. Our goal here is to introduce what the process is, what the context is, and then listen to you. And given the number of folks that are here, we have several different options on how to do this. And one is to just go ask questions from the crowd. But regardless of how we do this, I definitely want anybody who has any comments or concerns, we can talk about a lot of things, but I don't want to depend on me writing down what you have to say. I want, if possible, if you can write down what your comments are. We have a series of forms right here. We can either do it on here, or we have a series of sticky notes that if you say, I need service to a certain location, you just come right here and say, I need service to the airport, and write service to airport on the sticky note. And so we can have an idea of where an specific area is, or you might be looking for additional services. So I just want to make sure that there's different ways that we can interact today, where we can communicate with you, and you can, and specifically, you can communicate with us. But we want to hear what you're saying. We want to understand what your needs are, and do not leave here without either putting in comments on the sticky notes, on the maps, or filling out one of these forms in addition to talking with us. You can mail it in too, yes.
Do you want those passed out now so people can jot down notes?
Yeah, why don't we do that right now? That's a great idea. Pass that around. Where's that at? And let's pass it around. I wanted from a context of where we are in the process. This planning effort is a multi-month effort. We are just beginning. We have started the data collection this week. We're going to be spending the next 6 to 7 weeks analyzing the data that we receive, not just from a ridership perspective, but the market research data, the land use data, how is land use going to be changing, where's density going to be happening, where's redevelopment going to be occurring within Missoula in the next 5 years, as well as in the next 30-year time frame. We'll then take that data and then begin looking at creating alternatives, both on a short-term basis within your existing funding sources, as well as looking at, if we were to make transit a key and integral part of mobility options within Missoula, what will it take, and what would that vision look like? And so we're looking at you to help us identify what some of those things might be. Not just, I'd like to see a bus route here tomorrow, but looking at the future of what should transit look like in the city of Missoula in the long term. We'd be looking at developing these recommendations, initial recommendations, and coming back to the public sometime late January or around that time and say, here's what we heard, here's some of the things that we've identified, and you let us know if we hit the mark with this or not. So it is, there'll be another opportunity once we have some ideas on paper, something to say, here's what we think we should be doing in the short term, here's several different options. Here's some options where how we see the future of transit within City of Missoula in the long term. Does this meet your vision? Is this how you would like to see transit or mountain line be operating within Missoula in both the short and the long term? And we'll come back to you and say, did we hit it? If not, what changes do we need to make in order to make the vision of transit and the future of transit there meet the community's needs? This is the beginning of a 6 to 7 month long process. That is the 5-minute overview of what is a comprehensive operational analysis, what is the process that we're looking at here, and this is basically the point where I stop talking and I start looking at answering some questions. Before I go on, everybody's has a comment sheet in their hands right now, and I will go to questions right now. Yes.
Couple of statements. My name is Travis Moses, and I represent the Montana Association for the Blind chapter president here in Missoula. First question is, as you said, filling out these things, there's those of us that are unable to fill out piece of papers, hopefully that you'll make a means by which I will be able to participate in that. And that brings me to some of the things regarding mountain line. I'm just going to throw out several comments, questions, as I have to go pretty quick. One regarding that the ability of operators of the bus to disable the automatic announcement system, and they're doing that, which is against, and are not calling out stops, which is against federal law. I understand these drivers probably get extremely tired of hearing the announcements, but someone who is blind or impaired counts on those to get off. And I'm policy-wise, it should not be allowed by the driver to be able to turn off the automatic address system. The next comment is in regards to future purchases of buses. Hopefully, Mountain Line will allow drivers and riders to comment on the type of buses that are purchased, because these 500s are horrible, impossible to get on, especially those with disabilities, wheelchairs, trying to get on and off these buses, especially because of narrow front. It's impossible. And you were talking about these new trolley systems. I'm just, accessibility is seeming to always be a second thought. So hopefully, during this process, it'll actually be part of the planning stages for those with disabilities, wheelchairs, and the like. And the last comment I have is regarding buses quitting at essentially 6 o'clock for most people. The last bus is coming out of the transit system for 6:45. As a college student, I'm unable to take classes that are required because the buses quit so soon. I mean, this is a system-wide issue, especially with the ridership. The comments of saying there's not enough people to be on them is they haven't been on the buses lately. To be able to say that, but my main in the last thing is we've asked several times from a representative from Mountain Line to attend our chapter meetings, and they've either forgotten, don't show up, so I'm a little concerned at the, concerned with those issues. Those are the things that I have for today.
I want to, if you have time, want to sit down and make sure, I've written down your comments right now. I want to make sure that you have nothing else, no other comments after you hear some of that discussion that goes on here, if that's okay. Are there any other questions, comments right now?
I'd like to say that I think the bus services are gonna have Sunday service, they should have it started in the morning. They have Sunday bus service, they should have started in the morning.
To get to church.
So,
Yeah, go to church on time.
so what you're saying is that you would like to see Sunday service.
Sunday service, yeah, Sunday bus service. Also, I think evening service, I think the next 30 years we need to look at 24-hour service eventually too, for the bus line.
Travis has some marvelous points about the automatic announcements. I feel they also should occur a block earlier. Sometimes the announcement that says it's St. Jack's Hospital, you're right across the street from St. Pat's, you don't have time to reach up and grab the thing up. And I echo everybody who rides the bus concerned about the timing of these meetings, the evening ones. Because you're stuck with me during the day because I have no way to get home outside of a $10 cab fare, which I don't intend to pay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Thomas, my name is Dan Grogan. I'm on my lunch break here as a staff employee. As a 30-year mountain lion rider, I want to express my appreciation for the constant improvements because bus service has only improved. Everyone there, the receptionist, Michael, the road supervisor, especially the great driver crew, have been nothing but efficient and friendly in answering all my concerns. And I brought them a lot over the years. We're all here for that to make this a better deal. In that regard, I've just left Michael kind of like a letter or statement of my desire for an earlier schedule, but rather than reading it into the record more and everybody, Michael has that, and I hope you'll see that.
The record, I mean, again, do not depend on me to write down what you're saying. The record of this meeting, we're looking for you to leave your comments behind here, or to grab a sticky note or something from a perspective of hand us a letter, like at least two people. I know two people in this room that have already done that. To hand us a letter with the comments on it. We're looking for you to help us understand what this is and put it into a written format so that we do have a permanent record of what your comments will be. And if we passed these around already at least once, so if I'm going to do it again to make sure that there's a bunch of new people came into the room, let me pass that around again to make sure that even folks in the back, I see some of you with empty hands, pass this back. Make sure that folks have that. Are there any other questions right now? Yes.
I have a request. Please speak a little louder. You won't get to repeat the big stories about the same thing because we know what has been talked about.
Okay. My apologies. Yeah.
Repeat the question.
I'm not sure that's a microphone for. One of the things too is if you hear somebody else say something and you agree with that, we want to hear that too. Just because one person said it, it's like, okay, I don't have to say that. One of the things we want to hear, what are some of the consistent things on what is working well with Mountain Line, what is not working well with Mountain Line, and what can be improved. Those are some of the things we want to hear about. Is there an area in the city that needs more service or has no service right now? If so, where is it? Is there a time of day that Mountain Line services should be operating later? Which route and where? Is Mountain Line operating on the right days of the week right now? And running frequently enough? Those are the types of things we're looking for your input. It's like, do we operate in the right places? Do we operate at the right times? And do we operate on the right days? Those are some of the things, when you think about filling out your comment sheets or asking questions, those are the things, some of the things we want to hear from you about. Yes, ma'am.
Mine is about a specific line, number 12, that goes up to Whitaker, and you're missing a whole area up there. I suggest it goes up Whitaker, turns on Crestline, Highland Park, then Hogan, and back to Whitaker. You just add an extra boot in the line, because there's a whole area up there. And it's hard to walk over to Whitaker, sidewalk.
Okay.
And also the one that goes up the rattlesnake, number 5. I don't have a specific thing, that would actually go up a little further up the rattlesnake. A couple of meters.
And like I said, please write that down in the form as well.
I'd like to see the bus stops shoveled out in the wintertime, both for getting on the bus in the front and getting off the bus at the rear. And with this past winter, it was well over a week for many stops to be shoveled out. And I'm not as young as I used to be, it's a little hard getting over the snow to get out of
This is Michael, or are you?
Back here?
Michael? Whose responsibility? Is it Mountain Line's responsibility to shovel out bus stops?
It's not Public Works.
Public Works, okay.
But couldn't you use some crews like you have downtown? You have the people from Opportunity Resources that are downtown every day picking up rubbish. Can't you get crews out if the city is too busy to hit the bus stop?
We can look and see if that's something like that's a possibility. Yes.
Regarding bus stops, back to accessibility, it'd be nice if some of the bus stops were able to be gotten to by those with disabilities. We've got these stops on 6th and Broadway that you essentially have to climb downstairs and up downstairs to get on the bus. And not all the drivers, although we have some great drivers, there's those that aren't as willing to make accommodating stops for those with disabilities to get it on and off. And the other thing about stops, the use of Google Maps in placing the stops is not accurate at all. The sites where Google Maps says the stops are, it's not necessarily true. I can give several instances for that. The Google Maps shows that there's a bus stop in front of Broadway Inn on the south side of Broadway, but it happens to be on the north side of Mullen. Which for a blind guy, a couple thousand feet might as well be the entire world. And standing out there, So some of that accuracy, because I know these bus stops should be placed using GPS markers to update that, but it has not been done.
Okay.
So when we call in, whoever tells you what the stops are relies on that. Well, it causes some problems with the information they're telling you is not even true.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a small complaint. A lot of times riding the bus, the driver has other employees, and the driver sitting by the front.
No. Sorry about that, that's a university bus.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, in terms of passenger safety, the drivers do, I feel overall a good job of looking out for that. But on the 400 and 500 series buses, you have a different surface from the surface you had in the 200 and 300 and even the old 100s. When I have my yak tracks on in the wintertime, I have 3 times fallen down on the floor in the 400 and 500 series buses because there's nothing to get a grip on. And especially in one situation, in the end of the 500 series buses where I had somebody with long legs and a walker in front of him, it was almost impossible for me to get around him to go and get a seat where I feel comfortable. I've got short legs, so I like to sit on something close to the ground and not have my feet dangled.
Okay.
So look at what you can do about that surface, so it doesn't interfere with people in the wheelchairs, but it gives some of us souls with slippery feet some traction.
Okay. Got that down. Any other, yes ma'am?
I work with foreign students, and I actually get quite a bit of feedback about bus service, and the primary comments I receive are generally, well, until the late night U-Dash started, it was later bus runs, but I think the downtown area is really served well by ASUM transportation. However, students in outlying areas, it is very difficult in the evening for students to get back after classes. Likewise, Sunday service is something that continually comes up because they're kind of stuck wherever they are on Sundays. And just even one route to get them to Reserve and or one to get them downtown would be, and not just them, but all students, would be really helpful to be able to do shopping on one day of the week that isn't, usually Sundays aren't occupied by student meetings and things that Saturdays quite often are.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? Yes ma'am. You're next.
Yes, my question is in reference to bus shelters.
Okay.
Specifically the Route 4.
Okay.
And there was a bus shelter that was removed. It was in the middle of Hellgate Canyon, which anybody that knows about Hellgate Canyon in the winter is it can be very brutal, very windy and very cold. And I inquired about why the shelter was removed, and I was told that it was due to being on private property, that it was Montana Rail Link's property, and that there was something about rent, that the rental price was raised, and that there was no intentions of putting up the bus shelter again. And that is the only bus shelter that is in the entire Hellgate Canyon. It's very crucial. There's not just people that are able-bodied, there are people with challenges that use that bus stop, people that are in wheelchairs, that have other mobility problems, that now at 8:30 in the morning, if you're waiting to catch the bus to come into town, you are subjected to, it's going to be horrible. The elements are brutal. So,
Ray, do you have an answer to that?
my question,
You know, the short answer to that is that there was a significant lease increase by MRL on that property, and tried to work through the issue, but we removed the stop for now, but we're trying to resolve the issue, and so that comment's particularly important today, I think, Peg.
thank you very much, because it is a very important logistically. Yeah, thank you.
Yes ma'am, and then you next.
Saturday mornings, the first bus I can take from where I live to come downtown, it doesn't get downtown until 10:45. Now, I like to go to those health fairs, St. Pat's or somewhere else, and those start often at 7 in the morning. It would be nice to have something that runs a little earlier on Saturdays, so we could get some of our stuff done during the day.
Okay.
And thank you.
You sir, and then back to you.
I'd like to mention first that for those of us who have some hearing loss, rooms like this are very unpleasant. There's a loud background noise coming from the ventilation system. It's impossible for me to hear most of what's being said by others in the room, and I think the people who organize meetings should be aware of that and should make provisions so that everyone can hear what's being said.
No, I'm surprised.
I haven't participated in any processes involving the bus system since the decision was made on the location of the design for the downtown transfer center years ago. So I don't know whether these comments have been made before, but I have 3 concerns. Number one, drivers should be allowing passengers reasonable time to sit down before the drivers hit the gas. Especially in the wintertime, it's quite uncomfortable and even dangerous the way some of the drivers hit the gas while the passengers on the way to try to get a seat. Sometimes it happens while I am turning to sit down, and waiting a few more seconds to allow passengers time to sit down, I think is a reasonable thing to do. Secondly, the downtown transfer center is too small. I don't know what the name of the pavement in the middle there is. I'll call it the island. The island needs to be at least twice as wide as it is, especially with increase in bus usage. Third, the new buses were a mistake. They are like sardine cans. They are the least comfortable buses I've ever been on, and I've been in a few cities over the years. The seats are uncomfortable. There are too many seats. They are too close together. There are too many pieces of metal sticking out in odd places. The arrangement at the front of the bus is unreasonable, especially when you have guide dogs, or farther back in the bus when you have people in wheelchairs or with strollers. I don't know what other buses are available to you, and I understand that it's necessary to move toward greater energy conservation, but they are uncomfortable buses. I know you can't immediately change that, but it's something you should be aware of. When the buses were introduced, the Missoulian had an article that quoted people talking about basically how pretty they are. Well, they may look okay from the outside, but they are substandard on the inside. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'd like to comment on Route 4, the bus to Bonner. Because Bonner is essentially a ghost town now, I think it's kind of silly to be running a bus tour down to the post office. I think it would be much better if they rerouted the bus from Milltown to go down Highway 210 to Hillsville and Tura, where you would have much more ridership. I live in Hillsville, and frequently I am the very first person on that bus coming from Bonner Post Office, which incidentally is probably going to be closed. And I'm usually the last one off the bus when I come back in the evening. So I'd like to see that done. Kudos to the Mountain Line for putting 3 bike racks on the front. A lot of us out there in that section ride bicycles. I personally have a folding bike, so if the bike rack is filled, I can fold my bike in half and put it in the wheelchair access. Most of the drivers know that. There are a few that don't. I tell them to call in, and they're always told, yes, they can do that. If the possibility was there for a 4-bike rack, that would be wonderful.
It is my understanding that a 4-bike rack does not exist yet.
Okay.
So 3 is the new standard.
Okay.
So that's just or let me put it a different way. I have never seen a quad on a bus. So I'm going to go to you and then you.
Listen, I just want to interject. Nancy, raise your hand there, Nancy.
I'd be glad to pick up your sheets if you'd like me to pick them up, and don't feel like you have to stay if you have something you have to get to, but
yes, ma'am.
You're welcome to stay.
I've been reading about this thing on reading I agree with you, because I think it's very important that should be remembered that people who grow up in Boise, they don't like to notice about college, and not what college brings them. And I'm particularly talking about number 2. There may be a large amount of time during the day, but it's for one reason or another, talking about the bus, you have to wait another hour.
So you'd like to see more frequent service
That's right. I
on
think
Route
we
2.
do
Okay.
need it. Occasionally, we have buses that come by and they leave a little earlier than what is in the schedule. And it takes me less than 5 minutes to walk from my door to the bus, and I've missed the bus because there's only 3-4 minutes before.
Well, one of the things we're doing this week is to measure, it's not are the buses on time? And how many times are they arriving early, as well as how many times are they
I
arriving
would
late?
like to add in here, recently it has gotten a lot better, Okay. The other thing is, one of the things within the advertisement that you put right on the buses, it talked about the possibility of having Sunday buses. And it makes a great difference in people's lives when they get those part of the day. I do know a number of people that come back to the church on Sunday.
If Sunday service is something that you feel is important and you want to see, please make sure you have it in your comment sheet. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And the other thing, there was I do believe there was some talk about it, is that it needs to be in our mind. One person talked about that earlier. People that are as far away as the West Village, we want to drive. We miss a lot of things that happen starting at 6. Like, you're going to have one of these things between 6 and 8. I had to come now because I didn't have a bus to get there. And I don't mind working from town over here, but it is very difficult working from here to the downtown and to home because there is no longer a bus. So these are my 3 points. The Sunday and the later, I think, are very important issues. And to half an hour to make a big difference.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know, there you go.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Koppel. I'm a candidate for City Council in Ward 4. And I have been talking to lots of constituents on the doors and on the phones, and have been hearing a lot about the frequency issue as well. I think it would be great if we could make sure that folks can get where they need to go quicker, because I know I spoke with one woman just on Sunday who works over at REI, and she lives, in the Lewis and Clark neighborhood, and it takes her an hour to get there by bus, so that's just not really reasonable in terms of her schedule. The other thing I'd really like to see Missoula try is to pilot a free bus service like Corvallis, Oregon has done. I think that would be really, really cool and would increase ridership and help people get in the habit of taking the bus. I've also heard from a lot of younger folks who would love to see a bus, potentially a free bus also, that would transport people from downtown from the bars late at night, so to help reduce DUIs. So those are my 3 things.
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to echo the sentiment that I believe that 1 hour turnaround time for any route that services the university is insufficient. They should be servicing the university more often than once an hour. Additionally, service should begin earlier and go later. I don't know if that means that you have to abbreviate certain routes in order to accommodate a quicker turnaround, or what it means. And part of that comes to my last point. This is largely a reactive process. You're coming to us and asking, what are we doing wrong? Tell us what we're doing wrong. I want to know what Mountain Lion is doing to become the best small public transportation outfit in the country. I want to know what your strategic vision is for the next 30 years to provide Missoula with the public transportation that the community deserves. Obviously, everybody here wants it. People talk about low ridership. I think that is more a symptom of routes that don't really service important neighborhoods, routes that don't operate frequently enough. Issues like this gentleman who's now left talking about accessibility issues. I want to know what Mountain Lion is doing to address those concerns.
I think about 7 months from now, you will have an answer to that question of, how can Mountain Lion be the best small transit system in the country? What is the vision for future for transit in Missoula? Those are the specific things we're looking at doing. And this is a step in reaching that goal. I don't know if you were here during the introduction, but this is that part of the process we're looking at, not just what are the existing ridership patterns, what are the existing strengths and weaknesses of the service, but looking ahead and saying, where's land use going to change? Where's the density going to be? Not just how it is today, but where's it going to be in the future? Where are those opportunities that we can use transit to help shape land use and vice versa, to create those areas where it's a natural to be able to use bus service and not necessarily need a car.
Sure.
What are those opportunities? How can we increase the utilization of services? How can we get more choice riders, those who have can choose to use service? How can we get those to ride? Those are things by looking at the market research that we're doing, looking at the ridership patterns that we're looking at, and looking at the existing and future land uses. We're going to be able to conclusively say, here's what it is today, here's what it's going to be in the future, here's how transit can play a role in meeting the goals and visions outlined in Envision Missoula, outline the visions of the board that says we're going to increase ridership and reduce the dependency on single occupancy vehicle, and make that happen and put a price tag to it. Those are some of the things you'll see as a part of both the short-term and the long-term transit planning process. So I very much appreciate your comments on that.
Well, I appreciate the articulate and thorough response.
You will see an answer. We're at the very beginning of this process. So I call it the collecting data stage. And we'll transition into, here's some ways we can address some of the, to move toward that vision, and then hold another series of public meetings to come out and say, here's what we think, here's what we came up with, what do you think? And use the feedback to help us craft the final vision and the final version of both the short and long range transit plan. Okay? Yes, and then you next.
I'm interested in seeing some bus routes that go strictly on the arterials, like Russell and Reserve. For instance, I live at the Travoy Village Mobile Home Park, and I live at the west end of it. So it means a good 10-minute walk over to my bus stop on Russell. To get to the Trevor Shopping Center, for instance, let's say I leave the house at 10:15, I get downtown at 10:45, transfer to the 7, which gets me then down to Trevor's at 11. Now that's 45 minutes of walking and riding. When which I have no longer a car, when a straight route down Russell would be a godsend. And you could pick up the fairground that way. You could go further down to that Albertson Shopping Center down there on 34th. Reserve is similar. There are shops I cannot get to on Reserve because I have no car, and the buses don't go near enough to.
Okay. Let me, a couple of new people have walked in. Nancy, have you been handing out?
I was trying to see, does anybody need a sheet?
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and somebody right here. I was like trying to remember who's next.
No, my name's Colin Lane, and I'm a bus rider by choice, and for me, by far the biggest factor when I choose to ride the bus is frequency of service. Get to where I'm going and not have it take an hour. And for example, to get here, I was unable to plan it so that I could get here and not lose an hour out of my day. So I drove. And not everybody has that option, but I do, and that's a big part. The other thing I'll throw out there is that I just signed up for the text alert thing on the bus. Haven't really been able to test it more than once, but so far I think it's pretty cool.
Right.
I wanted to just interject, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michael Tree, the general manager with the Transportation District. And I wanted to let you know that we had kind of set up today's meeting to kind of allow people to come in and out, kind of students to come in between classes and spend 15 minutes, give some comments and leave. But I do want to let you know that tonight and tomorrow night, tonight is from 6 to 8 at the Southgate Mall in the community room, a workshop. And also Thursday night, tomorrow night, is another workshop from 6 to 8 at the Holiday Inn downtown in the ballroom. And I want to let you know that the format will be different at those two workshops. Certainly we're going to be taking the same comments, but at those workshops, Thomas will have time to really walk through a slideshow that will show you the tools in the tool bag, so to speak, for effective public transportation, as well as with the streetcar concept that we'll be undertaking, doing a preliminary feasibility study on. So if you are interested in actually learning about those tools and about the streetcar, I just want to make sure that you're invited certainly to those two workshops tonight and then tomorrow night. And you can go online if you forget where they're at and what time, but just wanted to make sure you had that background as you met today.
I will say, the turnout has far exceeded what we thought it was going to be, so I'm actually really happy about that. So, yes, sir.
I'm Stephen Mudick, of the president of the Citizen Fraternity, and I kind of hate to fulfill stereotypes, but I think if you guys had a bus stop that went through Beef Row, maybe Gerald and Daly, I think you'd get a full bus every weekend, especially if you were to go down to the bars and come back. Because I know our house has our own system to prevent DUIs, but I'm not sure every house does. And I mean, we have 300 plus students in that small city block, so I think that'd be really effective for like home security.
Can you do me a favor and show me on a map, or write that down?
Sure.
Give me the address again.
It's 1006 Gerald Avenue. That's where my house is. I think bus stops.
Right near Hellgate High School.
Yeah, like Daly and Gerald would be right dead center, pretty bro. I think that's definitely effective.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I walked in a little late, but I was really curious. I'm in Missoula. I get in my car every morning at 6:30 to go to work at Community, and it's crazy. And the bus, I watch the people getting on the bus. It's a 6:30 stop right there on Staples, and I'm just right across the country. But I can't get on that bus because it won't get me to work till 7:15. I have to be there at 7. The same thing sort of happens after work too. The bus leaves right before I can get on it.
So you'd like to see Route 4 operate earlier and later?
Sorry.
The timing was impeccable. Yeah, so you'd like to see Route 4 operate earlier and later?
If it could, I think a lot of people would opt to ride the bus if it could, accommodate the 12-hour shifts that we work there.
Yes, sir.
In an attempt to stay with the question rather than the comment format, why are not the larger employers that still remain as valid, especially the university and the two hospitals, why are they not simply more frequent service to those specialists?
That's a good question.
I thought so.
Let me answer that question by saying, by looking at the demand analysis and looking at what the ridership patterns are, you may see adjustments to the route patterns that make, lead to more frequent bus service to those major employers. But as I mentioned, from where we are in the process, we're in the data collection phase, and I'd be getting way ahead of myself and saying, here's what the recommendations would be. But come back in January. I think you may see something like that. Yes, ma'am, all the way in the back.
I'm a parent at Sussex School and an employee, and take the Rattlesnake Route 5. And we have anywhere from 15, sometimes 20, between parents, 20 kids and parents riding in the mornings, and a little bit less in the afternoon. But since the change to the Route 5, we have been getting to school late pretty often. And so I'm just here to give a shout out for Route 5. And then the other comment is the afternoon pickup used to be on 2nd and Catlin, and now it is on 3rd Street, and kids, they're escorted across the street. But it's a dangerous intersection. There's no traffic light, so we have an adult with a stop sign, but people blow by it all the time, and there are sometimes 17, 20 kids strung across 3rd Street and then stand in, no sidewalk, just in the dirt, waiting for the bus. So if somehow the stop could get moved back to the original location where the kids are dropped off in the morning, that would be terrific. and we'd be really grateful. But in general, our bus experience is so positive, and the drivers are so courteous, and they work really hard to make sure to hold the buses for us when we're late. And these drivers didn't sign on to be school bus drivers, and they deal with a lot of kids, and we're really grateful for them. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you, and then.
I just wanted to agree with this gentleman here. That's exactly what I had to do, leave him 1 hour before, so that I wouldn't be late on number one. Number two, I would love to attend one of those meetings from 6 to 8, but you would have to have an 8:30 bus. I could make it from there is no way. I can't go either way.
Yeah, and I think this evening and tomorrow night, certainly after a brief presentation, really it's time for the people to talk to the consultant and share with them their thoughts, which is exactly what you're doing today. And this is why we wanted to have this here at the university during the day, is to give you that
And I
chance.
also would like to add that I think the drivers, most of them are wonderful.
Amen.
Very helpful. They talk with you nicely as you come in and out. Terrific people.
I think, you know what, the board's, certainly the community's vision moving forward is to focus inward with the assets that it has. It's a great way to lessen in the long term your tax burden by focusing your assets in. You know, as you grow and as you redevelop and not conduct a lot of sprawl, you know, obviously you save your open space that you have in the community, you save your agricultural lands, and by folks focusing inward, you have shorter trip times, whether you're walking, riding your bike, the bus, or in your car. And so what I really think we're after as a transportation district moving forward in this planning process is what can we do as we focus inward to make this system more livable. And so if you'd like to see 15-minute service, for example, instead of 30 or 60-minute service, these are the things that we would love to hear today. We want to know how do we, if we had a blank canvas and we had 25 buses sitting in the barn, how do we set this system up so that it is even more livable for the future? So if you have things like that in your mind, if you're an employer and you're thinking my employees would use this system if, that's exactly what we're after. If you are a working spouse and you and your spouse have talked about the bus system and what works and what doesn't work and why you don't use it or why you use it infrequently, we want to know the reasons why. And so I just want to encourage you as you're talking to the consultant to realize we're setting up the next 30 years of strategic vision with the bus system. And those are the things that we want to hear. We want the system to be livable to where you could wake up in the morning and say, man, you know, I don't feel like driving today. I'd like to go jump on the bus. And you know what? I've got a bike. I'd love to make that part of my commute and have the bike and the bus work together for me. But the schedule doesn't work right now. I can't wait 30 minutes or 60 minutes for the bus. I need something that's more scheduleless where I know it's coming every 10 or 15. You know, if those are your values with the system and what prevents you from riding it or your employees, this is the time really to communicate that.
There's one thing I'd like to add to what I said. In your literature that was in the bus, one of the things that was a question mark is whether the prices should come down. I want you to know, I wouldn't have a problem at all continuing to pay what I'm paying now. If we could have a normal life. I can't go anywhere in the evening.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you. My name is Eric Yapster. I'm with the Fairground Advisory Committee. And following along on the concept of major trip generators and focusing energy more toward the middle of town, the committee, of whom we have 3 people here, it's a 15-member committee, unanimously agreed that the concept of putting a transit center in that part of Midtown is really one that should be looked at, especially because it appears on both the Transportation Improvement Plan and the Long Range Transportation Plan that have been worked on for many years. There are 8 major trip generators right in that area, and on any given day, there's close to 2,000 people, or over 2,000 people, attending those major trip generators. The Midtown Business Association is also trying to get people into that part of the city and make it an easier utility both to reach and to work within. And as part of the fairgrounds, of course, we're always happy for people to be able to get there, not only for the 6 days of the fair, but for the rest of the year and for all the events that do happen there. So there are a couple major properties that are ripe and possible for use for a transit center. And with the intersection of Brooks, Russell, South, seeing, I think it's 4 routes now, isn't it, that cross that area, it really is a nexus of a lot of transit, and it could easily supply a stop-off point for people, say, coming up from the Bitterroot who wanted to park their car, go into town, and have an easier way to get out of town at the end of the day. So for all those reasons, our 15 members are unanimously supporting the concept of a transit center in proximity to the fairgrounds.
This plan, I don't think I mentioned it, looks at not only where should bus routes go, but what are the capital assets that are necessary, not just next year, but over the next 30 years to support the levels of transit service that we'll be looking at. That's specifically one of the things we will be looking at.
Excellent, thank you.
Yes.
I would just like to agree with Aaron about community hospitals. My parents work on 2nd and 3rd floor respectively. They need to be from about 7, and maybe we should catch around 1, but it's a private hospital early enough for them to get work on them. And similarly, I work at the good food stuff, and it can be convenient to drop 9 and 5 a little bit earlier at that stop. Because that's usually about 3 minutes before I actually have to start a show.
All right. Here. Here.
Well, I want to echo some of the previous things that some of the people here have said. Later routes, my girlfriend can't get a job for a lot of different late night stuff because she can't get there and back if I can't go pick her up and take her to and fro. To kind of play off some of the stuff you just said, I have a hard time with I have to have a vehicle because I have this to come to events like this. And then other people who don't have vehicles have to take groceries and stuff like that. And it's very difficult with the new buses and any bus really to have this equipment, even as compact as I can make it, and get to my different chutes that I need to get to.
Was it you? Okay.
One thing for me as a student here at the university is that I rely heavily on buses to get around town, especially if it's further than a 4-block radius of the university. And one thing that I would really like to see is more service on Saturdays, more frequent, earlier and later, especially for the students, especially in the fall who are busy working the Grizz games. That's an all-day commitment. And if there's later service for the buses, then they have errands they can run in the evening. And another thing I'd like to see is Sunday service. Again, for the students who are committed all day for something on Saturday, if they get home and they're absolutely exhausted, they're not going to want to have to jump right up again and run errands. And being able to do that on Sunday would be a huge benefit to them. And then another, to reiterate what also has been said, earlier and especially later service during the week is, again, for me, really the only times I ever have to run errands or pick up groceries ends up being on the weekend because I don't have enough time between when I finish classes or have to start work or when I get off work and the time when the last route leaves. And even if it leaves, that doesn't guarantee it'll take me back where I need to go. So later service into the evening would be a huge benefit.
Let me put you on the spot here. The 3 things that you just said, which is more frequent early and later service on Saturday, Sunday service, or earlier and later service on weekdays. What's the most important of those?
They're all very important because they all have to do with enabling people who rely on the bus to get where they need to go during the day, in the evenings, like with the other meetings for this. I can't attend either of those because I have no real safe way to get back and forth between them. So I had to come with this, I had to take off work. And then with Sunday service, especially for the foreign students, too, it's being able to go shopping or run errands on Sundays, or be able to do that later or earlier on Saturdays one of the things this past summer with me going to the farmer's market I noticed is I would have benefited from having an earlier bus to go out to the farmer's market because it gets crowded later in the day there. And so much more convenient to go early when there's not as many people. But because the buses didn't run, it was a lot harder. And if the weather was bad, it made it even harder for me to get out there.
I appreciate your response. And one of the things the trade-off that I just asked you is going to be one of the things we're going to have to figure out, how to prioritize one versus the other, because at least initially, in the short term, we can't do it all.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's more important? And that's one of the reasons, I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. But,
It's hard to say.
It's a tough question. It's a really hard question.
They're all things that...
Because they're all important.
Yes.
So,
maybe with regards to trying out some of these new routes, you could do every 2 hours or so. I mean, it sucks to wait 2 hours for a bus, but if the only other option is to walk like an hour and a half home, then I'd really for the bus, especially in the winter time.
okay. Okay, you two, and then back here, and then back there.
Piggybacking on the last couple of comments. I live down in Lolo. There's no service out there. I don't think it needs to be super frequent, but I think it would be, you could really serve the Bitterroot, let people put a transit center or have a parking lot there and feed people in Missoula and get them to the fairgrounds. I don't know, I'm a one car, my wife and I have one car, and I want to keep it that way. She works regularly, mine is much less regular, and it would be nice to have that flexibility to be able to get into town from Lolo and
Okay. Yes.
I was just going to ask you, you're going to write a report to these guys and have some recommendations.
Yep.
Is your report going to include all the numbers? It's really going to come down to numbers for a lot of the communities. I live up the rattlesnake, and I'd be shocked if we get any more service. Just because, the buses I ride, that's ridership is pretty low. Are you going to include those kind of numbers in your report?
Yeah. The numbers will be, there will be, for any recommendation, there will be a rationale for the decision. It won't just be, we should do this with no supporting documentation.
Right.
So, but it's not just about the numbers.
Right.
There's priorities and policy decisions that come along with that too. So in essence, it's a giant jigsaw puzzle that can be put together in many different ways. And that's why we have go back out to the public after we created some initial recommendations to ensure that the value judgments that are inherently need to be made as part of this process reflect the values of the community. If it were strictly about we want to get as many people riding as possible, there's going to be a certain set of value judgments made to make that happen. If there's going to be a judgment on, or if the goal is we want to serve geographically as many people as we can within the service area, there's going to be an entirely different set of recommendations coming out of there. Because it's not just about the numbers, it's what policy goals are we trying to achieve as part of this. Yes, and then in the back.
I also think that if you have evening service, you should keep the same route. You shouldn't have go on reserve to cross the street on reserve to get to golf course. And you should have the same route that goes between the hospital and then comes back around again. Because that was I think one of the reasons the evening service didn't work last time is because you had different routes for the evening service and it was like crossing the highway a lot of times, and that was good.
And there's somebody in the back that raised their hand earlier.
I'm also from Lolo, and hundreds and hundreds of cars in rush hour is crazy. Where there's just this existing need for transportation to get into Missoula without moving and causing trouble. And I know that the train now isn't running anymore. I think Washington said it wasn't good to run it twice a week or something. So that railroad track is available. I wondered if there's any thought to grant money or something to get some of the rural folks into town safely, and connect into, link up into the city services too. But just, if you just were to even to drive yourself down there, you'd see the need that is just huge.
The long-range planning effort that we're undertaking is specifically going to be looking at the Montana Rail Link corridor for transit enhancements. What those are right now, what the market will bear, I have no idea, but we will be looking at it. But the right-of-way is a huge opportunity. There was somebody, no? Yes, yes, sir.
Two comments. I've seen many of the advertisements in Missoula for these meetings, but you mentioned the online survey that's going on that will, or Michael did. Has that been advertised widely so that those who can't make these meetings might be able to have that opportunity to take that online survey if they're not writers?
It went live, I believe, this morning.
Okay.
So we didn't want to advertise anything that's not live.
Okay.
We are handing out cards right now to existing riders, and we'll be looking at publicizing that, that link as well. If you go on the mountainline.com website and click on the project, there's a button in the center of the page that says the project website, and then the next page will say, if you want to take an online survey, here it is.
I guess my main point is, for those who have not been writers, who have not had an interest in looking at mountain lines, you need to reach out to those people so they know that they have this opportunity to take this online survey, indicate that they might be interested, and what might change their mind. Part of that, just tag on to many comments about the frequency of service and directness of service. My daughter lived out near the mountain and reserve intersection and worked at Holiday Village. When she would take the bus, she would be an hour in transit for a 2-mile ride. When her bike was working, she'd usually ride her bike when possible, weather permitting, she'd make it 15-20 minutes. So that kind of inconvenience of taking 2 hours out of her day to do a 2-mile trip.
Yeah.
That's very inconvenient and discouraging to many people. Understand.
Yes.
Rocky Allen, once again, on a different subject. It relates to the bus seats in the shelters and otherwise. I don't like to have a wet bottom, and the drainage of those seats is pretty bad. I've taken along a canvas bag to lay down before I never sit on the seat when it's been raining. There are some of them that have very good drainage, the seats in the downtown area, and some at Southgate, although those seats have a problem. The ones that are in the shelter don't have a seat back. You have to lean against the shelter wall in order to sit up. So I'm arguing for good drainage and seat backs on the bus shelter seats.
Are there any other questions, comments, things that you'd like to share? I have no idea what time it is right now, but
not quite one.
Not quite one.
Oh no, it is about a couple minutes past one.
If you'd like to, we'll be here the next hour if you want to speak one-on-one, share any comments or concerns you have. Be more than happy to do that. Again, I want to thank you very much for coming. We're here to talk. So, yes.
I do have a concern when you talk about streetcars, and these tearing up streets and putting rails in and so forth. Rather than that, what about electric buses? Because those can get over close to the curb to let you off. It might be a safer option.
That is certainly from a technology perspective, it is an option we can look at.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you or whoever it is with Mountain Line working with the major employers on any more than a regular basis, or are they just invited to these meetings?
I don't know what to answer that question.
We'll be reaching out. To be honest with you, the Missoula Downtown Association has a fabulous partnership with Missoula in Motion and the Parking Commission and the employers. If you're a member of the Downtown Association, all your employees have a free bus pass. So, you know, we really want to make sure that the other huge employers in town, like DirecTV, and some of the other employers that aren't in the downtown area itself, have an opportunity to really give input on the bus system and to spark those partnerships so that ridership really takes off a little bit.
I can kind of speak to that a little bit too, working for Missoula in Motion and knowing that these meetings are coming up. We reached out to our contacts at those places and gave them as much of a push as we could, saying, hey, now is the time to voice your concerns, to make your opinion known. And some of them have said, great, we'll be there, and we're going to have a meeting at our office space and, you know, collect feedback all at once and present it. And other people have said, okay, thanks for the heads up. And then that's that. And so there's a certain amount of buy-in that we can't force on people as much as we'd like to.
I believe that I got an email in my community hospital email from, I can't remember who it was from, but it was opening comments and mentioning, opening for comments to send down to him. And then also mention these 3 meetings, so
that's great.
That was exciting. That's why I wanted to, he was just going to get
A couple of newcomers in the back. We have a couple of forms, comment forms right here. I don't know if you've received those or not.
No. And I'll be happy to pick up ones that you've already filled out if you'd like to get them off your lap.
But, how many of you missed the beginning of the presentation? Most of you are here? Okay. Let me, before I do that, yes ma'am.
There is a thank you that I'd like to express. I have been more than once at the stop, and something happened to the bus. I don't know what problem happens, and much faster than I would have expected. There was a small vehicle coming, one of the top people from the organization
Right behind you.
to pick us up. I think that's wonderful.
Great. I want to do a brief overview of the process for those of you who missed it when we did a brief summary about an hour ago. We've been hired by the city by Mountain Line to conduct a short-range as well as a long-range transit plan for the city of Missoula, and as well as a streetcar, looking at the feasibility of streetcar service in downtown Missoula. So I want to talk about what each one of those means. The short-term plan is, to basically look at, how can we make some immediate changes to service that better meets the travel markets that are out there. The long-range plan takes a look. The long-range transit plan doesn't focus on the first 5 years of service, but focuses what should service look like 30 years from now. How will Mountain Line service fit in with the context of a growing community, and what role will Mountain Line take part in addressing some of the increases in population and employment within the valley. The process that we're taking to do this is a 6 to 7 month long process, and we're at the beginning of this process, where we first look at collecting data and collecting market research. Some of the things that we're doing this week is to collect the ridership data on existing services, where people are using the services and when. And we're also looking at, we're conducting an onboard survey that is being handed out to all riders that are riding the bus today and tomorrow. If you don't see it today, you'll see it tomorrow. But every trip will have somebody on it in the next couple of days. We're conducting an online survey that went live today that allows not just existing users but non-users to help us understand what some of the trade-offs are and that we might be facing in helping us allocate where we should invest our transportation resources. We're holding a series of public meetings here today and tomorrow to help us understand what some of the unmet needs are within the community. And once we develop a series of initial recommendations, we'll be looking at holding a second series of public meetings that will allow you to tell us whether or not some of the recommendations or concepts that we came up with truly meet the transportation needs within the city and its environments. As I mentioned, we're at the beginning of the process, the data collection stage. In the next couple of weeks, we'll conclude the data collection stage and be looking at analyzing what we've got. We'll be looking at analyzing the ridership patterns, the existing and future land use patterns, the employment patterns, as well as where the future development will be going. So, and some of the market research that we've received as part of this is to help us understand, what people are looking for. What is the, how do they perceive transit fitting within Missoula? So, these are from a time frame perspective. We'd be looking at having a series of initial alternatives ready by, or concepts ready by the end of January in that time frame, and that's when we'd be looking at coming back to the public with those. The goal for a final plan is by this late spring to have a final short and long range plan as well as feasibility study completed. So that is the several minute overview of what is this process. Our goal for today was to listen, to hear from you what are some of the things that we should be looking at as a part of the short and long range transit planning process. And last but not least, while I have been writing down most of the comments, as best as I can in my shorthand, for the record, if you'd like to make a comment or have a question or talk with us, I would strongly encourage you to supplement that with a written comment, so that this is what goes in the record, not necessarily my notes. This is what's going to, what we're going to keep. We can refer back to it and say, here's what we heard as a part of these meetings. So I strongly encourage you, if you haven't done so already, to fill out a comment form, and don't rely on my chicken scratch to show what you said at these meetings. That's the brief overview. So one of the things I wanted to ensure those folks that have come in new to the room is, you might have heard some of the other folks asking questions or comments or things of that nature. If you have any questions or comments, let us know. But again, please fill out the form in addition to asking any questions. So
you can mail it in, I asked.
Yeah. So with that, are there any questions, comments, or anything like that? Yes, sir.
I actually already did submit some written comments that are probably in the bottom of the stack, but I didn't hear the introduction, so I would, now that I've heard that, you said you're looking at, short-term, long-term. Didn't make it onto my piece of paper, but I think short-term, servicing university on east-west routes is really necessary and important right now. The route that I'm familiar with is number 8. It gets a lot of students to both Hellgate High School and the university, and it needs to be a lot more robust, meaning a lot more frequent, particularly when the students need it. The bus gets pretty full, in spite of what the public perception of the buses not being that full. They really are a lot of the time. People pay attention. That's kind of a short-term thing, and long-term it's just more of a general observation of what. When we did Envision Missoula, we all basically, the community agreed is a focus inward approach, which basically means put your service and put your infrastructure where it's going to make the most difference for the most number of people, which means where people live, where the density is, and where the employment centers are.
And
that's longer term.
Envision Missoula is one of the guiding, I guess you could say, the guiding principles for looking long term here. How do we turn that vision into a future service plan?
And so part of that, I think a short-term perspective is not to install things that are so, infrastructurally ingrained into the system that there can't be some flexibility to move those. And I'm thinking specifically of something like, say, if there's a decision to put a hub or a small station in a certain place, it may not be where it's really needed 30 years down the road. So having components of that are portable are important. I'm thinking like in terms of, it'd be so awesome if we got a real train station here. And then we may need to rethink then, like where the downtown bus station is. to be a bit cautious about pinning a lot of things down in place when long-term things can change. Or one of my comments on my piece of paper is that if there are like bicycle lockers installed at peripheral locations, they need to be portable, and we will be able to unbolt them and move them in case that spot isn't working, or if the housing patterns change and we need to move them over or something like that.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? Yes.
One I had shared previously with Michael through a direct email was a suggestion with respect to the new transit center, the new bicycle facility in the transit center downtown, was the potential for the bike share programs that are springing up around the country to have a bike share facility incorporated in that kind of a facility, and also at any additional primary transit areas that would be developed. If there's some means of partnership of outlining with some kind of a bike share program that would be partially self-funded.
Okay.
It's a good comment, and just it's amazing how more and more folks who are riding their bike are making or allowing Mountain Line to be a part of their either commute or their leisure ride or to run their errands. It's fun to see.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Go. Call that.
All right. Just want to make sure we see that. I'm Dan Burke. I'm the president of the Montana Association for the Blind, the state president. You mentioned surveys on the bus, and I walked this morning, so I didn't see it. Is that the same survey you mentioned in the previous hour that's online? And if not, how is that going to be accessible for folks who can't see or read it?
It is a different survey than what is available online right now. There are surveyors on the vehicle, and it's one of the things that they can assist you with filling that out if that's something that you run into.
Excellent.
It is not a paper that somebody picks up. There's somebody actually on the bus handing that out.
In regard to the survey online, we've talked about it at the staff level about if someone calls in and would like to, take that survey but might have difficulty with taking it. And so they're more than happy to assist in any way, whether it's reading the questions and then marking the answers for the individual or whatever it takes to make sure that they're accommodated. So I would encourage folks to call into Mountain Line on that customer service line. It's 543-8386, and just ask for a customer service rep and talk to them about whatever your needs are.
Thanks. Well, hopefully that online survey meets web accessibility standards.
Any other questions, comments?
I have kind of a boring, practical question as opposed to these great, big ideas questions. I understand that a good portion of NETD's funding comes from the air quality non-compliance district, and I was wondering if that governs more or less the boundaries of where service lies, if there has to be service out to those boundary lines, or not, would the tax district change, and how difficult a process is that to happen? Could the plan come up with all of these great suggestions, but then there not be the political will to change the tax district, and then it goes by the wayside?
I'm going to punt on this.
I'm not aware of any requirements on funding that service be in any certain area. There's certainly like Title VI issues that we look at to make sure that all are being served with equality, so to speak, that we're not discriminating. But in regard to where exactly we go, I don't think it's tied to any funding or partnership that we have with anyone.
Okay.
Was that a boring enough answer for you?
Sure.